Hello, everyone. My name is Jeff Robins from Nature Portfolio, and it is an absolute pleasure to be here today with Peking University School of Nursing as part of the Weiming Young Nursing Scholars International Forum. Now, in my talk today, I would like to speak about something that's not only particularly important to publishers, but especially important to me. And that is the importance of transparency when reporting your research in your articles. Now, why is it so important to be transparent when you're communicating your studies to the field? Well, you have to remember, although you are really familiar with your research because it's yours, you designed the study, you conducted the study, you analyze your results. Your readers are not. For them, when they download and read your article for the first time, they're going to wonder whether or not they can have the confidence and trust in your research. They may or may not be familiar with you. And when you're able to establish that confidence and trust, you're going to have much greater impact and influence in the field, which of course is going to have a strong effect on your ability to establish a reputation. And reputation is like currency in academia. As you develop your reputation in the field, you're going to ensure that you're going to have greater chances throughout your academic careers in terms of promotion or finding new positions. It would also probably lead to more successful grant applications, help you to establish more international collaborations, or be invited to give talks at international conferences, or even to be reviewers of reputable journals. It all starts by having an important reputation, and that starts with having transparency to establish confidence and trust. Now, related to transparency, I'm going to be discussing three important topics today. The first is transparency related to reporting of what you actually include in your papers. We'll then go on to discuss the importance of transparency in the methods section of your paper. And then finally, we'll talk about the importance of transparency related to presenting your results. So let's begin then with the first topic related to transparency of reporting. Now, we've noticed, when I say we, I mean publishers, notice a lot of variability in terms of what's being submitted to get published in journals. And this variability in terms of the information present in the actual papers, I think stems from one of two reasons, or maybe a combination of both. First, it could be dependent on the researcher's experience. Those who have greater experience, who have published more papers, they are aware of what the expectations are of what needs to be presented in that paper. Younger researchers, however, may not be that familiar. They may wonder to themselves, do I really need to communicate this aspect of my study design or related to the patient inclusion exclusion criteria? And therefore, if some of that information is not communicated, it again could impact confidence and trust in your paper. But it also could be because of the region of where you're based. I've traveled around the world speaking with researchers at institutions. And one thing that I've noticed is regional variability in terms of what people think needs to be transparently reported. Now, this could cause a problem for either of these two reasons, because as a reader in the field, when I download an article and I want to read about that study, I need to ask myself, is this going to be variable based on the other papers? because of the researcher experience, or if I have one paper downloaded from an author in this region and another paper downloaded from another author in a different region, can I really compare those two studies? We're going to be concerned about that standardization of what was being communicated. Now, because of that, international standards have been set, particularly true within clinical research. And you can find these international standards, these reporting guidelines, at a very useful site called the Equator Network. It's completely free to access. It simply collates all of these reporting guidelines for you, so you can find the one appropriate for your study design. And as you can see, I just recently took this screenshot today. There are 479 guidelines available. So that means if you're going to be doing a randomized controlled trial, we'd encourage you to download the consort checklist. It's a checklist of about 25 items or so, to telling you this is all the information you should be communicating in your paper about your RCT. And by having the standardization set, regardless of your experience, regardless of your location, you'll be able to feel confident that what you're communicating is the exact same as anyone else from other areas worldwide. I'm also very happy to notice that today I saw on their website, they now have a version of their Equator Network now available in Chinese, which just should make it much easier for all of you to be able to read through that information. Now, these are relatively standardized guidelines across study designs, but you can still find more specialized guidelines for different fields. For example, for nursing, there's one called the RAN Care Guideline, and this is strengthening transparent reporting of research on unfinished nursing care. And you can see what the bibliographic information here and the URL. These guidelines are not simply put together randomly and then shared on this website. They have been put together by experts in the field on the information they feel is necessary to communicate. It then goes through peer review and is published in reputable journals. And so if you'd like to see the paper that supports the guideline, that information is available. So for example, for this one, you can simply go to Research in Nursing and Health, and you can find the paper related to the RAN Care guidelines. And as these authors have indicated, this is a 40-item checklist, and this provides recommendations for transparent and comprehensive reporting on unfinished nursing care regarding conceptualization, measurement, contextual information, and data analyses. So if you are wanting to report research on unfinished or incomplete nursing care, this would be the guideline to help guide you through the information you should be including in your papers. Also be aware, related to these guidelines, some journals do require them. Please carefully evaluate your author guidelines of your target journal to see if these checklists are necessary. If so, I encourage you to fill it out and submit it with your manuscript. But even if it's not necessary, I think they work wonderful to help you to structure your outline of all the information you'll need to communicate in your paper to improve its transparency. So now that we've talked about reporting transparency, let's now move on to the second topic related to your methods. This is your methods section of your paper. Now, for an editor, transparency in your methods is essential for two key reasons. Firstly, for peer review. Reviewers are evaluating your study design because they want to make sure that you're using the right design for that research question, You're conducting all the right techniques and analyses and analyzing them in the appropriate way. If you do so, that validates all of the results presented in your paper. However, if reviewers find any flaws in the study design or analyses, that could invalidate your results, and therefore your conclusions are no longer properly supported, which could lead to rejection of your submitted manuscript. So help to avoid that, be transparent. But editors also want your paper to have impact in the field after publication as well. And so having that thoroughness and transparency in your methodology allows other people in your field, researchers, practitioners, to build off what you have done, to really apply your ideas to the field to improve patient care and management. But they can't do that if they cannot thoroughly evaluate your study design or build upon it to replicate those results. So in your methodology, you'll have your main text. Please be aware you also have supplementary information. So if you have additional methodology you'd like to describe about controls, for example, or other strategies that you explored that were not successful, I'd encourage you to share that transparently in your supplementary information as well. So now that we've talked about the importance of transparency in reporting and in the methodology, let's now talk about the importance in your results, the findings presented in your paper. Now, to improve transparency related to your results, firstly, please avoid selective reporting biases. Authors often feel pressured not to share negative or non-significant results in their paper, those that did not have a significant p-value. But that's actually not going to be useful for the field. I encourage you transparently share your positive results and your negative results in your paper. Negative results are often not part of the main text figures, but they can be shared as supplementary figures. Now, why is this so important? Well, some people think that negative results are bad results. They're not. Bad results are those that are obtained with an inappropriate study design, wrong techniques, wrong controls, or conditions. Those results are bad because they are not validated, they are not accurate or reproducible, and therefore not useful for the field. But as long as you are using the right study design, with the right techniques, with the right conditions and controls, all of the data is good. Some of it, hopefully most of it, will be positive, but some of it will also be negative as well. But it is all good data. And negative results, don't let the name fool you. Negative results do have a positive impact on the field for several reasons. Firstly, they help to prevent research waste. So if you share negative results in your paper, and as a researcher in the field, I read your article, and then I would see that you tried this and it didn't work. Well, then I know I shouldn't waste my valuable time, resources, or money trying to do that, because it would likely fail as well. And anything that prevents research waste has a positive impact on the field. But by us knowing what didn't work, help generate new hypotheses. Okay, so you tried it this way. Perhaps I can try a different strategy, or perhaps I can optimize the way that you had done it in your paper. And anything that generates new research will, of course, have a positive impact on the field. Now, to help your colleagues with this, when you report your negative findings in your paper, generally in the discussion section, you'd first want to highlight what those negative results were, Based on your familiarity with that topic, your subject expertise, interpret why you think that they were in fact negative. But then give your suggestions for the field. What would you recommend others to do to try to overcome those issues, to try to address that question in a more appropriate way? And by doing so, you're helping to influence positively those results have on the field, as well as establishing your subject expertise in your paper, which will help it get through the peer review process. But for those of you that have conducted systematic reviews, will also understand the importance of negative results. So in these systematic reviews, the authors are trying to collate all of these results related to a certain research question from all of these different studies, published or unpublished. And then they're going to provide a synthesis, either a narrative synthesis as a systematic review or a statistical synthesis as a meta-analysis. But if only what's available are positive results, because the negative results weren't published or not accessible, then that will bias the conclusion of that systematic review, and that is not useful for the field. However, by you publishing those negative results, allowing that information to be included in the systematic review will help to ensure that the conclusion is authenticated, useful, and relevant. Again, positive impact. Furthermore, it's going to be useful for reviewers. Remember, reviewers are evaluating your credibility. They want to make sure that you conducted your research in the appropriate way. Now, if they know that there were 5 different outcomes, primary and secondary outcomes, that should have been evaluated, but you only presented 4 of them because the 5th one was negative, well, the reviewer won't know why that information's not there. They're going to think it's one of 2 reasons. Either one, you didn't know, you should have looked at it, and now they're questioning your technical credibility. Or you did do it, but you're not sharing it, which makes you look unethical. In either case, it could lead to a negative evaluation of your paper, which could potentially lead to rejection. So sharing negative results does have a lot of positive influence on the field, and I encourage you to do so in your papers. Now, in addition to negative results, the selective reporting biases, you also need to be careful with how you present the data in your paper. It needs to be as accurate as possible. You do not want to mislead your readers. So that means, of course, you need to avoid any unethical manipulation of your figures, cropping out parts of the figure of the image that you don't want to share, or excluding some samples or excluding some information that you feel has an effect on your hypothesis or your conclusion. You need to be thorough and transparent. But it also means choosing the right way to present that data. You want to be as transparent as possible in data presentation as well. So for example, many journals currently do not want you to use bar graphs because bar graphs don't really properly show the distribution of the data. Even if you have your error bars with the standard deviation, that shows variability, not the actual distribution. So most journals now do recommend that you're either going to be presenting your data with scatter plots or box whisker plots, which are a much more accurate way to present the distribution of your data as well. Furthermore, you need to choose the right graph. I've seen some papers where it's like a cross-sectional study, but then they plot the graph as a line. Well, line graphs are meant for longitudinal studies, not cross-sectional studies. That will mislead readers to think that what you actually conducted was a longitudinal study, and that's not what you actually had done. Remember, people generally look at your figures before they read the main text. And lastly, always be sure to share the raw data to support your figures if asked by reviewers or editors during the peer review process, but also understand that many journals are starting to require the sharing of that raw data in supplementary figures as well, again, to improve transparency. So in my talk today, I've tried to just emphasize the importance of transparency to help improve confidence and trust in your research during the peer review process and after publication. And by doing so, you are going to improve the impact and influence your ideas have in the field, helping you to establish your reputation. So with that, I would like to thank everyone for listening to my talk today. I hope you enjoy the forum going forward, and I would like to wish all of you best of luck throughout your academic careers. Thank you for the invitation to speak here today.